Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining the session today. My name is James McBride. I work with Voya Financial, and this is a session entitled Oracle Cloud ERP, a journey, not a destination. A little bit about myself. I'm currently the manager of financial systems for the Voya Financial. I've worked about the last 18, 19 years in financial systems. I've worked in all kinds of different industries, whether it be retail or travel, distribution, healthcare, television, staffing, or financial services. And I have been directly a part of 3 different ERP/HCM, some SCM projects in the cloud, Oracle Cloud, and I have done some little work with some other enterprises as well that have done cloud that needed some help in some different areas. So I've touched probably 6 or 7 different cloud ERP implementation environments and have some background there in that space, which brings out the content of this session. So we're going to start with a couple polls so that I can get to know about the audience that we have. And so I have a better idea of how to steer some of the conversation or points, so to make sure that we touch on stuff that is important to the group that is here. So I will start the first poll, which is on the status of your cloud project. And I will give everybody a little bit to answer that question. Okay, so we got some answers to that poll. Thank you for answering that poll. See that seems like the majority of the folks that we have today are either planning an Oracle Cloud implementation or are considering it. So you aren't quite planning one, but you're considering a move to ERP Cloud, which is good to hear. And we've got some folks that are either live or implementing as well. So that'll help me steer some of the conversation and some of the stuff we talk about. Second question I like to ask is, what is your role in the cloud? So are you a business user? Are you an IT person? Are you, say, an executive sponsor? Or do you work for an implementation partner and you're doing implementation? Okay, thank you everybody for answering that poll as well. Seems that we have a good mix of folks here, a large population of IT folks and some implementers as well. So that's a good mix, and that's good for me to know. So thank you for that again for answering that poll. we will now move on to my next slide. And here I say, you went live. Congrats. You are just getting started. This is kind of what I learned in my first time I went live, and then when I interacted with other environments is you work through the months, how many ever months your project plan was. If it was, my first project was 9 months we went live. I've been part of the project to 2 years to go live. We go through many, many months of, go live planning, testing, and we kind of, we want to have like that, oh, everything is back to normal kind of thing, right? But normal is now different. I've been places where we've gone from like a cloud app to, an on-premise app to another on-premise app, and things kind of stay the same. But when you go from, especially if you came from an on-premise app and you're going to this cloud app, normal isn't what normal used to be. Normal is now different. So that's why I call it a journey, is we get to go live, but there's still a lot more work that needs done and a lot of change that's still going to happen. So it's a good thing. If you've gone live, if not, and you're going live, that's a good expectation that, go live isn't the end in the cloud, especially. Go live is really just the beginning. So to kind of approach that topic, to talk about how this journey is, we're going to go through some topics, and I'll just touch them quickly here, and then move on to some other things. But we have some HR folks too. Cool. We have some topics we're going to cover is, the importance of ongoing executive engagements in the cloud. In the cloud, is extremely important that when the project goes live, that is not the end of the the executive committee, the sponsoring committee. There's a lot more they have to do post go live, especially in the first probably 6 to 12 months. We'll talk about the importance of user engagement, ongoing user engagement after go live. Talk about from our IT folks how supporting the cloud is different than how it's used to support, say, an on-premise application. We'll talk about the importance of interpillar communication, especially for those ERP folks that are running both ERP, HCM, say you're running supply chain as well. That is very important, especially if those are split out across different groups. I'll talk about quarterly releases, I've created my own definition of stability in the cloud, and we'll kind of talk about how we define stability and how I found best to define that word in the cloud. And then we'll kind of talk about why cloud isn't like what we had before. Especially if you came from an on-premise application and you're going to ERP cloud, it's just not the same. And we'll talk about that a little bit. And then we'll talk about some resources. There's a lot of folks here that are planning or considering that this product, we'll talk about how some of the resources you have available to yourself that you can even use now to kind of look at and review some questions and look at how-tos and tutorials. And if you're live, some of these things are a great resource to help you get through problems you may have. I'll talk about Customer Connect, some release documentation sites, our friend support, the Help Center, some user groups, different YouTube areas you can go to get some information, and also different available online education from Oracle. And we'll start with our things to understand. Executive engagement. What do you want to call it? Executive sponsor engagement, whatever term you use in your project, right? Is those people that were the first people to support the project, to say we're going to put this project in place. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. Generally, these folks, have a definition of an operating model, and they decide we're going to do this and this, and we're going to say we're going to rebuild the chart of accounts, and we're going to change the business process, we're going to centralize, maybe we're going to decentralize. These folks are exceptionally important because the decisions that you make during the project or even pre-project, they're going to get challenged post-go live. People are going to be frustrated with the new processes. People are going to just think things don't work. They're not going to like a change. They're going to be used to what they've done for the last 10 years. And they're going to get a lot of pushback, and they're going to get a lot of fight in that. And if the person who sponsored this, people who came up with the ideas, the people who built the model, if we waver on those things when it becomes hard or challenging, you have a tendency to lose the user base, right? You lose the business user. And as soon as you lose a user and you lose their commitment or their understanding or their willingness to learn the new application, to an extent you can lose. It can turn an implementation from a good implementation to a bad implementation. So it's extremely important that we maintain that relationship. Those sponsors are engaged heavily, and that they understand the importance of their role in maintaining what was decided before go live, so that we can be in a position for success and getting through those bumps and challenges and issues that we have with, just going live and not understanding things and doing things different, and they become just so important. And I've seen modules, not even full implementations, have problems, but just like a particular module of an implementation have a problem because the sponsor didn't backed off or went back on things they had decided, which now caused conflict with what we had designed and all that stuff. So it's very important that those individuals are continually engaged, even post go live, and that they have an understanding of the importance of maintaining what was decided in the past. Then we'll talk about user engagement. I've worked on projects where most of the times we call it a COE, a Center of Excellence. It could be a super user committee, whatever you're going to call it. Those people are your best friend, or they could be your worst enemy, right? Those people, their adoption of the system and ongoing understanding that they need to continually learn with the system, right? That every release, their responsibility is to help, especially if you're IT, help you as IT, have them learn the system with you, right? They need to learn the new updates in the release, and they need to learn how the screens change and how processes work and how, because if they're not there doing that and kind of spreading that information out amongst the other users, it becomes extremely hard to maintain the engagements of the users, because as things change, as they always do in the cloud, people will get frustrated. People will, not understand how to do the thing they used to do yesterday. It's very important. They are very important, especially because people will not understand the system when you start. When you go live, you're going to have a user base that does not understand exactly what they're doing. No matter how much you test and do walkthroughs and testing cycles, there's going to be a user population that does not understand, and they're going to make mistakes. And sometimes when they make mistakes, we can't just run scripts anymore to fix those things. So we need to have folks on the business side that are champions for the system and understanding the details and the weeds of the system, so that your support folks have that backbone of people they can go to help in those situations. And they're also important because the system changes all the time. Like I said, screens change, buttons change, new buttons show up, fields move all the time in releases. So you need to have people engaged who understand those things and can communicate those things out to the broader audience in a way that they understand and can consume into their day-to-day work. Support. If you are a support person coming from an on-premise application, what I've experienced was you're going to need to develop a variety of skills for your day-to-day, whether it's technical skills or system skills or functional skills or system administration skills or training skills, right? Because a lot of go live, post go live support is retraining users. It's training and retraining and training and retraining and training and retraining. So, if before we just focused us from a support perspective on technical issues like applying patches or doing scripts or writing reports, now we need to focus on, training users, making sure business process is documented, that we understand how things work, because we can't just run scripts anymore. And how I kind of adopted that myself, my model was, I went with the motto where first question I ask is, what did we do wrong to lead to this situation? Vast majority of the issues and errors and the tickets you're going to get are going to be associated to a user mistake, to no fault of their own, right? They're using a system, especially early on. It's just we need to ask ourselves, because if it's not something we did wrong, that becomes much more concerning, right? Because that's a system problem. I got to go to Oracle. I got to figure out, is the system broken? I have to create SR. So if I can figure out, hey, did we do something to cause this? Great, and then we can fix that, and we can document, and we can improve that business process. Support. There's a lot of resources. This isn't necessarily different from if you're on-prem Oracle. It could be for different applications, but those resources everywhere. There's Google, YouTube, Customer Connect, get used to all of those tools. And those tools continually change. Oracle moves the location of tools. New tools become available out there. New people throw up YouTube channels that have tutorials. Different organizations do that. Like, you have to be kind of continually learning where those resources are available to you and where you can get the best information so that you can continue to support your users to the best of your ability. This is just a me thing. Next, I consider an SR to be the last option. With so much documentation out there, so much information about bugs and how to fix things, if I don't need to log in SR, I don't. I'll go to support. I'll look it up myself. I'll look at somebody else had the problem. I'll go to Customer Connect. I try to resolve it on my own so that, one, I'm learning something, support's learning, but also we're not depending upon Oracle to just feed us everything that we need to know. And then document. This isn't different from other systems necessarily, but with how deep in features the system is and how much it changes and how every release adds new features, we need to document everything because the system's going to change over and over again. So you have to change documentation over and over again. So we need to have that documentation established so that we're able to change it and then communicate those changes effectively to the business users. We'll touch on interpillar communication. I think this is important because depending on how your model is laid out, you can do one thing in HCM that can cascade down and affect projects. But you could change a username somewhere in HCM for some reason. Somebody wants to go by Jim instead of Bob, right? You could change that in HCM, not realizing the cascade down to a project, right? So especially if you have separate HR support groups and payroll support groups, ERP support groups, their communication is critical because those applications are written so intertwined that you have to continually talk about, hey, I want to make this change and you want to make that change. Well, what's the impact of that change on me and that impact on you, right? And that's a journey because that's always going to change because as Oracle changes the application, some of those connections may change. So it's really just a communication of, hey, here's what I have going on my side. Here's what you have going on your side, to make sure that we're all on the same page. Because if not, they can have a big ramification on the business user and the functionality of the application. Quarterly releases. I feel like somehow every time I go to a new environment, a new company, we just never seem to have a grasp on releases. It's important not just for the support folks to know it, but for the business folks to understand and have this on their calendar and know this is happening, is that you're going to get your lower environment release on the first Friday of your release month, and then it's going to go to production on the third Friday. You've only got 2 weeks to test it. Right? That's all you've got, and it's coming that third Friday. So if you find a problem, you need to find that problem right away. And you need to review release documentation, and you need to review it multiple times when it comes out. A couple weeks later, you need to go over it over and over again because sometimes things add to releases, sometimes things take away from releases. It's kind of a continual journey of how is that release evolving and how are you going to test and review that release. I like to look at a release as a project. You're going to have a dedicated schedule of, hey, I run these test scripts on these days, and I get these sign-offs. And I like to make sure that we get critical path testing done in the first 2 days of a testing cycle. So if you have some business process that absolutely positively has to get done, do that the first 2 days every time. Because if a problem occurs there, you can reach out to Oracle and try and get that resolved rather than if you find it the last day of testing and it's going to break production on Monday, you're kind of stuck, right? If you have the ability to build or obtain an automated testing tool, Oracle, there was a session earlier in the conference today about the automated testing tool that's available from Oracle for free that you can build out your testing. It can be helpful, but I don't, it's helpful, but I don't encourage you. My stance is it's not as the only choice, right? In my eyes, the business user, that's COE, they need to be involved in every release cycle because they touch those screens every single day. Right, so you may have a test script that you wrote automatically, and that test script passes, but there's some change to the screen that changes how you do something else. If you're not going in and touching that, you're not going to see that till it hits production. And then at that point, you have to deal with it, right? And so you can find a workaround, or you can address it with Oracle. So it's critical that the business group, those people that were key project users, they're continually engaged every quarter, ongoing to infinity. Stability. You know, as the application evolves over time, every quarter you're getting new features, you're getting changes to features, you're getting new applications put in, new modules developed. Stability is a fun word. I've kind of created my own definition where I define stability as a point where both the business and technology teams feel confident in their ability to handle day-to-day business challenges and the necessary activities to properly update quarterly releases. So if I can, you know, do the day-to-day and handle a release, and I feel good about when I go to the release, you know, I come to work on that Monday after the release that everything's going to work. That's what I fit stability. And I typically define that in the cloud world as about 12 to 18 months post go live. Talk about life is different. You know, when you were on-prem, if you came from an on-prem environment, that's different than this, right? You know, if you were on-prem, you could run a patch. You could, you know, run a script, put a patch in. You know, you could do all those things. Oracle, you can't. Cloud, you can't do those things. And you may have a data loader that it could do some of those things, but you know, if you mess something up bad, you're probably gonna have to go to support, and support may or may not support a script, and you may or may not have to manually fix a whole bunch of data. You know, it's very important that everybody's on the same page and we're all following the processes so that we don't, you know, do things that put us into a situation where we need to run a script and we can't. And now we will talk about resources. So some of my favorite resources for the cloud, Oracle Customer Connect. Customer Connect is great. You can put out problems you have out there and people respond with solutions or ideas or questions to help you along. There are the Idea Lab, which is where you can put out your enhancements requests so that Oracle knows, hey, I've got this feature, other people can vote on it, and you can hopefully get that feature into a future release. It's got all your events, your webinars, it's got links to all your learning, and also to all your readiness documentation. Release documentation is here. It's where you've got all your information on your new release, on your upcoming releases, your previous releases. It's good, you know, to check this multiple times per upgrade, just to make sure the documentation, you know, hasn't changed, something hasn't been removed, they haven't added something, so that you're prepared for what's going to come. Then you've got the Help Center. This contains all the different implementation guides, different books on how different applications work, guides to how to use those applications. There's some videos that'll have tutorials on how to use different functionality, and this is where you'll find your documentation on APIs, which is really important if you're deciding to build middleware applications to connect maybe other applications to your Oracle Cloud. This is where you can find that API information. User groups. So Quest has a number of user groups associated to cloud. They have a customer experience group, the ERP group, which I am the president of that SIG group, the HCM cloud group, and then a sales cloud group. So if you follow those links, you can get information to those groups. You can help share ideas, give information, share information, ask questions that'll help you along your journey. There are a couple of YouTube, different places you can go on YouTube. Oracle has their own cloud tutorial, and there's the general Oracle site, and then there's actually a channel where they put readiness videos. So you can go out to YouTube and get that information if you want to get that there. Then you have different Oracle online learning tools. You've got your Learning Explorer, which is Oracle's free training on the different applications. It's a great introductory thing. It's great for people who are thinking about going through implementation, who are planning, for business users to just get kind of some basic understanding of the system, for your new staff to get understanding of the system. And it's a great resource for videos and documentation on new features. Then you have Oracle University, which has the paid subscriptions. Those paid subscriptions are pretty in-depth. They do have an annual cost, but they do provide detailed courses with skill checks that will help you towards, you could do implementer certifications for different modules if you have folks working on a particular module. And that subscription also includes the ability to take certification tests at no cost for those different modules. And always our friend Oracle Support. That's where you're going to put in your SRs when you have problems. It also provides you with a great place to go to search for solutions. If you're having a problem, somebody else may have had it before, and you can see the knowledge base and see how their issue was resolved and how they were able to get through that. And then the ERP known issues doc, which is the place they put known issues for each release, problems that they're aware of and that they're working to fix. That's the doc ID for that doc. So you can go out and look at that if you encounter an issue to see if it's already something that Oracle has documented as a known issue. And we finished up a couple minutes early, so if anybody has any questions, they want to post them out there, or if they want to try and unmute themselves to ask, go ahead and do that. But thank you for coming today. Thank you for sitting here to kind of talk about how cloud is a little bit different, how it's different than where you're probably coming from. It's a great journey. I've been doing it now for a number of years, and I greatly enjoy the application. And I hope those of you who are considering it, will go that direction. So. We got a couple minutes if anybody has any questions, and you can also type those in the chat or the Q&A. Okay. Well, I do not see any questions. I hope this was informative and that folks were able to gain something in their decision process or in their day-to-day from the information we shared today. And I hope you have a great rest of your day and enjoy the rest of the sessions as part of Innovate. Thank you. Have a great day. Oh, I did get a question. Do you have to take the enhancement each quarter? The answer is yes. You have to take every release. You have to take, unless it's a feature, you have to take the release. It's not an option to not take the release. There are features that will come that are allow you to kind of select them, but that's not every feature. There's plenty of features that come each quarter that you have to take. You do not have an option, but there are others that you can opt into. And eventually, typically those opt-ins will run out. But you do have features that you can opt into or not opt into, but there is a number that you have to. When you're not running a script, so a question about not being able to run scripts. So ADFDI, there's HDL, there's FBDI, there's different data loaders that at times will allow you to fix data errors. Depending on the application you're working with. Sometimes you just have to reach out to Oracle if it's a big enough error and work with them to try and get either a profile option or a script put together to do it. They don't do it a lot, but there are other tools, other loader tools that exist out there depending upon the application that you're running. And if anybody has any questions, you can feel free to email me at my work email, which is james.mcbride@voya.com. We're running down to about a minute left in the session. So if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email. And I'm always happy to share knowledge and information. I am also the president of the ERP Cloud SIG with Quest. So if you're interested in joining that, we would welcome more folks and more questions and more feedback that we can provide to Oracle to kind of help them with how we would like to see the product move forward. So my email address is there. It is on the presentation if you download the presentation. And like I said, feel free to reach out with any questions you have. We are down to about 30 seconds. So I appreciate your time and hope you have a great rest of your week.